our second speaker, Rachel Dobbs, who is a co-founder and director of CAMP, Contemporary Art Membership Plymouth. And Rachel will share her experience in helping to kickstart this artist-led, member-led network in 2018, 2019. And as I said, CAMP is a member-led network with a creative and visual arts community in Devon and Cornwall, and it includes artists, producers, curators, and arts writers. And it is really, I think it is a trailblazing journey in many ways, and it serves as a great inspiration for these assemblies. In fact, I think that's what's giving me the fuel. So welcome, Rachel. Please share with us participatory practices of establishing the network.
I'll do my very best. Thanks, Olia, and thanks everyone for having me this evening. So I kind of titled this quick presentation, Why We Did It Ourselves. So firstly, like, my name is Rachel. I'm here because I love talking about CAMP. I was one of the co-founding directors, and my tenure as directorship came to an end in the summer last year. So I've been going through a kind of process of handing over to other directors now, which is fantastic. So to describe CAMP, CAMP is 111 members as of today. We are visual artists, we are visual arts producers, we're curators, we're art writers, and we're lots of different people who are involved in this kind of world of visual arts. We started in Plymouth, so Contemporary Art Membership Plymouth, the letters of CAMP stand for, but very quickly it became obvious to us that actually our scope was across all of Devon and Cornwall, and we now have members from across that whole area. So there are lots of different practices in this kind of world of visual arts. So there might be recognizable things like painting, drawing, printmaking, sculpture, but it also goes across into experimental writing, into book and zine making, into film practice, music, socially engaged practice, event making. You know, it's a broad church that we're part of. And I guess that was one of the things that was very important to us at the start, that we drew our kind of circle around our community wide enough so that it could hold everyone that was part of our kind of ecosystem within it. So the reason that CAMP came about was because it was coming out of the ashes of Plymouth Arts Centre. So a little bit parallel to what a lot of people have been referencing this evening with the closing of the bike shed. The closing of Plymouth Arts Centre, after they were unsuccessful in securing NPO funding, meant that we had this kind of crisis point, this void or this vacuum that had come up. So previously, Plymouth Arts Centre had been a kind of magnet space for visual arts practice and visual arts practitioners. And they also had an associate scheme called Pack Home. So that was a way of artists kind of forming a kind of network through that organisation. So in the very last days of them having the building and things like that, in August 2018, we called an open meeting. So the open meeting was called by a number of artists who had been talking to the curator and the temporary director of the Art Centre, saying, hey, we need this meeting. We need to find out who's out there and what we should do. And we spent that meeting together in a circle like this, sharing our experiences of what things had worked previously, what we needed to do differently, what's missing, what do we do if nothing happens? And always in the corner of our minds was this kind of void or this black hole that was about to suck everything out of it. So from that meeting, an initial group of keeners made themselves known. So these weren't people who knew each other necessarily beforehand. Some of us did and some of us didn't. There was around 8 to 10 people. And we were artists, curators, producers. We had 2 of the ex-program coordinators from this associate scheme. There were educators in there, people with lots of different types of skill and different types of experience. So as an initial group, we realized that actually we needed to like step up and we needed to do this because nobody else in the city was going to do this for us. So I would say that's a really kind of key feeling that spurred us to action. So our first kind of idea that we came up with through those conversations is that it would be important for whatever this thing was that we made together to be member-led. And so for us at camp, that's important because we were thinking about what doesn't work and how not to repeat what doesn't work. So our experiences before of artist development and support usually had this weird kind of focus on business or on generic sessions about freelance work or this idea of like a creative industry, something like that. They were often designed and managed by organizations. And one of the things that we noticed was that for organizations, artist development and support was often an add-on. It wasn't necessarily the priority. We were asking questions about, does this approach really work? You know, how effective is it? And why not instead support artists to do it themselves? So these were the questions we were kind of coming up with. And we decided that we'd turn this into something that was member-led, a community that was member-led, because we wanted to be able to set our own agenda. So again, I think this really ties into what Hannah was talking about earlier in terms of participation. We knew that we would have to do the work so that we would be able to set our own agenda. Nobody was going to grant us that power. So we set out with this idea that if camp is led by its members, then we'll be able to make really good decisions for our community of interest, the people who we had kind of drawn that circle around. And this brought us up to the next kind of thing. We were setting up, we needed to set up a bank account, we needed to become some kind of organization, and we decided to become a community interest company. Because we were thinking about, we're a community of interest, that's important in the way that we present ourselves and the way we hold ourselves. And to do that, you have to nominate directors, like legal position directors. So we worked out that really for camp, directors are caretakers, not the boss, and that's quite an important distinction. And that to make all of this work, members were going to have to do the work together. So we've got a structure of working groups, and the working groups come together to report at like business meetings every month. So the lead person from a working group will attend the kind of monthly business meeting. The working groups have different names and have different kind of tasks. Hopefully they're relatively self-explanatory, but we can come to that again in the questions. And there are sometimes other working groups that aren't on this slide. Another thing that's really important for us is that members make decisions together. So we were going to be applying for funding from Arts Council England and from other sources. We were gathering in resources to camp. And rather than have a panel of directors make the decisions about who got what and how resources were allocated, we found that it was really important that actually this became a member decision-making process. So for every opportunity that we have and we advertise, we also advertise for a panel of people who want to help make the decision on that. And the panel of people look at all of the applications and then make the decisions about who gets what through this kind of process. And that has a really nice side effect, which is that camp members learn and grow. So they're enriching their skills and their own skills and own experience, and that also enriches our community. I think that's a really kind of key one, and something, again, when we're thinking about this idea of artist development and support, the aim is often around building skills, building resourcefulness, all of this kind of stuff. Camp also makes a really special effort to draw on local skills and resources, as well as making connections elsewhere. That comes in lots of different ways. One of the ways that we started with was by partnering up with other organisations. So this is a kind of map of arts organisations in Plymouth. And we worked out, great, we can partner with you on this, we can partner with you on this, we can partner with you on this. That gave us access to lots of different spaces, lots of venues, different expertise, and also allowed funders to be confident that we had the right type of network of support behind what we were doing. So we were working with existing organisations in Plymouth and now also across Devon and Cornwall. Members are encouraged to share their skills through the programme. So in the last year, we've had a strand to our programme that is called Pitch. And Pitch is an opportunity for any member to pitch something that they would like to do with other members. So that develops other members' skills, develops their expertise, knowledge, trying something out. And it's important here that we're thinking about this. This helps us to kind of work out that we're actually not in competition with each other, and that our skills and knowledge are a resource for sharing in that kind of sense. Members also invite other people in. So the types of talks or events that we program when we're bringing external speakers in are not the types of talks and events that are going to be programmed by anyone else in Plymouth, and less so in Devon and Cornwall as well. So we're inviting people who we feel are the most relevant, who are the most exciting, and who really have something to say to the members of camp. And for those reasons, we're coming up with really different programming ideas than we would be if we were an arts centre, for example. Also, members connect with each other. So they connect here, which is Devon and Cornwall. A lot of our time at the moment, that's on Zoom, but that also is in kind of face-to-face settings. And members from camp are also connecting with other membership organisations. So one of the Zoom calls that's here is from a project called The Exchange, where camp is one of 6 different organisations around England, Scotland and Wales, who are each putting forward 10 artists to be part of this programme. And that involves kind of buddying, it involves exchanges, presentations, running events, all of these kind of things. And so that's a way that we're kind of helping to connect with each other and also connecting with elsewhere. And having something like a structure like camp, as soon as you have an organisation and as soon as it has a number of members, that's also gives you a potential platform from which to advocate and to represent. So this is a photograph of myself and Sophie Meller, 2 of the co-directors at the time when we were launching camp. And this is our local MP who's come to chat with us because we've invited them along to our launch event. And that's the first time that they're hearing from artists, from visual artists in Plymouth, what it is that visual artists need and want in the city and what they want from their elected representatives. So just having this like name to what you're doing can be super powerful. Similarly, on the other side of the slide are some screenshots from the recently published culture strategy for Plymouth. And camp, again, are involved in that consultation process. So I guess these are important things why kind of clubbing together and doing it yourself puts you on a par with big organizations, you know, the people who normally have the power. So through this process, camp members get better at working out what they need and finding out ways to access that. And I think that truly, like, as a sense of empowerment, once you understand and are able to communicate really what you need, and I find this as a human being is really empowering. That's like a really big kind of step. And we do that through doing the work. We do that through making the programs. We do that through going and talking to people. I'm doing it by doing this evening. So I'm just going to end on this kind of idea of thinking about maybe a question that Pi might have. What are the things that sustain us? Or what are the things we need? This is a slide of notes from one of the talks that we had an invited speaker called Sue Jones. I'd highly recommend that you look at her writing around artists' livelihoods, because she's doing amazing research really into what are the things that artists really need to make their practice happen. And here in this diagram, she's kind of boiling it down to things like vocation, location, and relations. So this sense of like to have the confidence to act, the sense of belonging, and the ability to get ahead. And those aren't things that we might prioritize when we say things out loud. Often we're saying like, I need money, I need jobs, I need these things. Whereas I think she's doing an interesting job of boiling other stuff down. So I have babbled fast and I've probably gone over my 15 minutes. I don't know, because my clock disappeared. It was quite exciting. But my kind of question or my provocation to all of you is, what could the way of organizing that we're using in camp do for you? So, and this encouragement really of the like, do it yourself, but not by yourself. So how can you do it yourself, but with others?